Okay, judicial accountability. I spent almost 4 decades as a firefighter serving the community. We have a code of conduct. The firefighters are expected to be able to maintain public trust because our contact with the public comes at a time when there's some sort of calamity or catastrophe that's entered their lives, a very stressful period. So firefighters must have that public trust. And we're very stingy with that. We're very protective of that. If we get a firefighter that's a bad apple, that guy's out of there. All right, judges. There's no mechanism, there's no effective mechanism. There is an impeachment process for federal appointees in the Constitution. But let me tell you how effective this thing is. In the past 100 years, there's only been seven judges removed through the impeachment process. That is no effective mechanism, period. Especially when you look at the lunacy that's going on in the federal court system today. Okay, we can fix that. It's going to take a constitutional amendment. I've explained it in writing in the Contract with America 2020. We the people can fix that. We can darn sure play games with our legislators, our representatives, and our senators. Hey guys, we got a problem here. We got to fix this problem, and call those jokers out. Let's smoke them out. If they won't support, let's get a way to rein in these rogue judges, then you obviously need to replace that representative as well. So we can play cat and mouse with them through a legislative, through the constitutional amendment process in the Congress. But this is going to happen in a convention of states, because the political types, they know that whoever's got the bulk of the power in the judicial branch of government, then they've got control. So they rely on these activist judges. The progressives particularly rely on these activist judges. The law be damned. They want activist judges on the bench that's going to do what they want them to do politically. So to say we're going to get this thing resolved in Congress, not likely. But we can have fun with them, calling them out. Okay, let's talk about removing judges. You hear about term limits. I've read and heard about people advocating term limits for federal judges. To me, that's not a solution, because then you say, okay, if the term is 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, if there's no performance criteria, then okay, we've got to put up with this jihadi judge for however long the term is. We can't get rid of them. So let's make it a performance-based thing. If a federal district court judge, let's pick a recent example, the joker out there in San Francisco, the district court judge out in San Francisco, he's 0 for 2 here recently. He took a case, immigration, complaint, that was decided in the 80s. This thing made it up to the Supreme Court when Reagan was in office. It was a twin. The cases were so similar, it was like an identical twin. Made it to the Supreme Court in the 80s, and the Supreme Court, by unanimous decision, upheld Reagan's authority to do what he was doing back then. Well, this judge took the case recently and enjoined President Trump's authority on immigration, what he was trying to do with the migrant thing, the keep them in Mexico thing for the asylum seekers. Even the Ninth Circuit, the most overturned circuit court in the land, even the Ninth Circuit couldn't back this joker up. They said, no, man, this thing was decided by unanimous decision. Our decision in the 80s, the Ninth Circuit decision in the 80s, was overruled by unanimous decision. That federal district judge should have never taken that case. He should have rejected that case when it was petitioned. Say, all right, this thing was decided by the Supreme Court over 30 years ago. Your case has no merit. On prima facie, you're out of here. Get out of my courtroom. But he took the case, and he ruled in favor of the plaintiff in defiance to a Supreme Court decision that was unanimous. The guy still sits on the bench today. Okay, so this guy's a total loser. He's dumber than a sack of hammers, or he's totally corrupt. I don't care which. He does not belong on the federal bench. This guy sits in judgment, legal judgment of other people, and does not deserve that authority. Let's get him out of there. We can amend the Constitution to where if a circuit court judge or district court judge has a decision reversed because of judicial activism, judicial malfeasance, just being a jackass, he's off the court. He's off the bench permanently. He cannot serve in the judiciary. He cannot serve in justice. He cannot serve in law enforcement. The guy can go to the city of San Francisco and get a job as a pooper scooper, because obviously he's qualified to shovel doo-doo, but he shouldn't be on the bench. Okay, the next tier, the appellate level. If an appellate court affirms a decision a district court judge made that's a complete whack job, and I'm not talking about a decision that's, a law that's poorly written, which there's plenty of. I'm talking a decision that is obviously judicial activism, malfeasance. If the appellate court affirms that decision and it makes it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reverses the appellate court, which of course would cascade down and reverse the district court, all the judges on the appellate court voting in the majority on that thing, they're off the bench. They're out of there. And then it cascades down to the district court level as well. They're out of there. Okay, this gives the judges a chance to police themselves. This guy's a jackass. He shouldn't be sitting on the bench. We're going to overrule his decision, and thus he's removed from the bench. Boom. Zero tolerance, one strike, you're out. The Supreme Court, if you're so pleased and proud of your jurisprudence and your sense of justice, if you've got this stuff going on in your inferior courts underneath you, here's your chance to police that. If you've got this thing, this case makes it to you, and you can see that this thing is nothing but a bunch of legislating from the bench, a bunch of crud that's not justice, it's not the law. You reverse that decision, those appellate court judges that voted in the majority are out of there. The district court judge that started this crap is out of there. Then you've had a chance to police your own house, clean up your own messes. If the Supreme Court fails to do so, then it's going to go to we the people. There'll be an objection process. It's written, it's written out in the contract. If a majority, simple majority of the House and Senate object to a Supreme Court decision, then that objection is going to be sent out to the electorate. We the people are going to vote on it. If the objection is sustained by a 3/5 vote of the electorate, if we say, yep, the Supreme Court really screwed up on this, which they're very capable of doing, the Supreme Court really screwed up on this one, and by 3/5 vote, we're going to nullify that Supreme Court decision. Then all those justices that voted in the majority of the ruling that was objected to, they're off the bench, and then the dominoes fall all the way down to the district court level. Everybody that supported that crud is off the bench. If the Congress fails to raise an objection, there's another mechanism defined in there where the states, a majority of the state legislators, can raise an objection to a Supreme Court decision. And then the same thing goes on. There's an objection, and 3/5 of the electorate, the voting citizens, sustain that objection, then boom, the consequence is the same. They're out of there. And then the final thing in this judicial accountability thing, they love telling you about, the co-equal branches of government, 3 co-equal branches of government. We've learned that. It's in the Constitution. We're taught, those people that read the Constitution understand it. I don't think many people teach it anymore. The executive, the legislative, the judiciary, co-equal branches. The only court authorized by the Constitution is the Supreme Court. The inferior courts, the Constitution leaves it to Congress to establish those inferior courts, as needed. So when you're going to talk about co-equal branches of government, to have a third string backbench district court judge sitting out in some podunkville on the West Coast or out in Hawaii or wherever they sit, enjoying a presidential action, that's not co-equal. So, okay, the only level of the court that can do review of presidential authority, Supreme Court. That's co-equal. If you're going to go after the chief executive of the country, the president, and you're going to challenge his authority, some jerkwater district court judge out in Podunkville can't do that. That can only be done at the Supreme Court level. We can put that in the Constitution. It's going to require an amendment, obviously. If you're politicians, and call them out on this stuff, if you've got a representative or senator that's up for re-election next year, so call your politicians out on it. See if you either support it or don't. You know, this thing's going to wind up in a convention of states, because I doubt we'd get 2/3 of those jokers that are elected in Washington to buy into this. Even if you really call them out on it, as gutless as they are, they know the stakes here. The stakes is 1/3 of the government. Is it going to belong to we the people, rule of law, or is it going to belong to the politicians? Call them out on it. Let's see where they stand. Me, I say rogue judges, I could care less about those guys. What I care about is justice. So let's get control of our court system. This can be done. This can be done. Let's get her done.